And then we'll start out here with some academic vocabulary. And so these are words that you have defined and wrote a sentence for and turned in through Google Classroom. And so the first one's stabilize, to make steady or unwavering. And so if you stabilize something, you're making it steady. The students stabilize the ladder so Mr. Solz would not fall. I know you all would do that for me. Criteria is like rules or standards. And so you can see here, it's rule or standard in which judgment can be passed. Sustain, to support or hold up. Arbitrarily means randomly or by chance. And so here's our notes terms that we're going to define today: price, rebate, rationing, ration coupon, economic model, and most importantly, equilibrium price. And so when we talk about price, this is something that you guys are familiar with because it's the monetary value of a product. And so if I asked you what's the monetary value of a certain product, like say Mountain Dew, you would tell me that that's $2 if you go to a basketball game or a football game, buy it from the concession stand. And so that's the monetary value of that product. That's the price of it. And that price is established by supply and demand. And we'll talk more about that, especially when we start looking at some economic models, some supply and demand curve. That'll make more sense. But just remember that that price is not something that is arbitrarily chosen, or it's not random or by chance. It's set by supply and demand. And price helps producers and consumers answer the three basic economic questions. And so price kind of acts like an economic system in itself, because it helps us answer these questions of what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Like what is produced is based on what people are willing to pay. Remember, we talked about when you buy something, you're voting for that product to be purchased. Those are dollar votes, every dollar you spend. That's what we want to produce. How to produce it, the producers get to choose that, and that is determined and established by price, because they're not going to produce something in a way that's more expensive than the price. Because remember, money is the motive. They're motivated by profit. And so they have to keep those costs down. And then for whom to produce, how we decide who gets the stuff, that's established by price as well. If you have the money to pay for it, you can get the stuff. And so economists really like price and using it as an economic system. You should write these 4 advantages of prices under the notes terms price. And so the first advantage is that prices are neutral. Prices don't favor consumers. Prices don't favor producers. They're neutral. And so both sides actually win here. We talked about voluntary exchange before in a market economy. Well, if you're doing something voluntarily, it's because it benefits you. It's because you want to do it. And so prices are neutral. They don't favor one side or the other. They actually favor both sides. Prices are flexible, and so they can react to unexpected events. They can absorb those events. And so prices make it to where we don't have to rely on a central authority to decide where to put resources after a shock or an unexpected event. Prices do that automatically for us. They respond. And so you think of this pandemic and some of the prices that went through fluctuation during the pandemic. So you think of like bottled water, and toilet paper was the big one, where the price of toilet paper was really expensive. Well, that's because prices are flexible and they changed depending on the supply and demand. And then number 3 is that people know about prices. You guys know about prices. Ever since you're a little kid, you know, if you get a quarter, you can go get a gumball out of a gumball machine. All right. It's easy to understand. We're aware of it. We learn it when we're a little kid. And so we can make decisions with confidence. And then there's no cost to administrate. And this will make more sense when we talk about rationing. But no cost to administrate means that we don't have to pay some central authority or the government to make all these decisions about what's produced, how it's produced, and who gets what. All right. Prices adjust on their own. And so there is no cost to administrate when it comes to prices. There's no central authority we're paying to determine the price of items. And economists really favor the system of prices over the system of a central authority making decisions because prices help individuals make decisions. So we've talked about the invisible hand guiding us and our own self-interest, and it actually benefits society as a whole, even though we're just acting selfishly. Well, prices are one way that we do that. And so if you go to a store and you want to buy something and the price is right, then you're going to buy it. Or maybe you buy multiples of it. But if you go to the store and the price is not where you want it to be, you're not going to buy that thing. And so prices are going to help you make those decisions as to purchase or not to purchase. Prices serve as signals that help allocate resources between markets. And so we've talked about, oh, that's embarrassing. We talked about how a high price is a signal for consumers to buy less, and it's also a signal for producers to produce more if it's a high price. And so if something is selling for a high price, what that means is that we're going to allocate more resources to that thing because it has more value. The price is higher. So here's an example. Oil and gas prices increase. Now, what could that affect? That could affect a lot of things. But in this case, we'll look at the production of SUVs. And so what's going to happen if oil and gas prices increase enough, there's going to be a decrease in the demand and production of SUVs. And so we're going to make fewer and we're going to demand fewer big vehicles. And so the price may change. And one way that happens is they may offer a rebate on those products, a partial refund on the price of the product. And so if we have more SUVs than we can get rid of or sell, then we have to lower the price. And price gives us that signal. Fewer resources are used to produce SUVs, and more resources would be used to produce a substitute, like a fuel efficient car. Now, if we're not using the price system, we would have to be using rationing. And rationing is a system where the government decides everyone's fair share. Now, rationing has actually been used in the United States before. The last time that rationing was used in the United States was during World War II. So make sure you have that in your notes. World War II was the last time rationing was used in the United States. And usually rationing is used when we have a scarce amount of resources. And so think about food as a big one. Cuba still uses rationing today. And so they hand out their ration coupon book. I think it's called the Libertad. And that means that everybody gets at least a little bit of food. It guarantees everybody some food because food is scarce in Cuba. Some people would not eat without their ration coupon book. And so a ration coupon is a ticket that entitles the holder to obtain a certain amount of a product. And so if you were running a store, you would be told that you could only sell sugar if the customer had a ration coupon for sugar. And that would ensure that everyone can have access to sugar. There are some problems with rationing, obviously, or else everyone would use it. Now, problems with rationing would be that everyone feels their share is too small. And so think about this. If somebody tells you you can only have a certain amount of something, that is taking away your freedom, right? And so everyone feels their fair share is too small. They're not getting enough. There is an administrative cost of rationing. So think about just the cost of producing those ration coupon books and then distributing them to make sure everybody gets theirs. And then also to make sure that they're not counterfeited, right? So you have to police it. And so certainly there is an administrative cost of rationing. And then there's a negative impact on the incentive to produce. And what that means is if somebody tells you you can only have a certain amount of something, you cannot have more of it, then you lose your incentive to go out and to work hard in order to get more stuff because you can't get more stuff in rationing. So those are some problems with rationing that the price system does not have to deal with. And then I just have a slide here. This is the first page of a ration book distributed during World War II. And so if you kind of read this, rationing prevents waste of food. And so make sure that everybody gets their fair share. Made sure that we had enough to send off to our troops who are overseas. Rationing increases our war effort. So everybody's kind of doing their part by rationing. Rationing divides supplies equally. So there'll be enough supplies for all of the people that we have to make sure has food. And then rationing prevents uncertainty. And so you're never going to think, am I going to have enough to eat? Well, yes, you are, because you have this ration coupon. And then some other examples of rationing you see here, they actually produced, this would be like a ration coupon for 1 unit of gasoline. Here, this guy's trading a ration coupon for a can of V8. Talking about your sugar ration, 2 pounds per month. And then equilibrium. Like I said at the beginning, equilibrium is the most important of our terms today, because we're going to really use equilibrium to explain how prices are determined. And so we'll look at it on economic models, which are just graphs used to analyze behavior and predict outcomes. We have already looked at several economic models in econ. Think of the production possibilities frontier. And that allowed us to analyze and predict the outcome when we added 1 more unit of labor. We could predict what the total product was going to be, what the marginal product was going to be, those 3 stages that we talked about last chapter. And so the production possibilities frontier is an economic model. Supply demand curves are economic models. We can look at those and tell what is the quantity supplied when the price changes. And so those economic models are going to help us determine what the equilibrium price is for certain products. And this is where the supply and demand curves intersect. And so if we put both of the downward sloping demand curve and an upward sloping supply curve on the same graph, where those 2 curves would intersect, that price point and that quantity would be the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. It's also called the market clearing price, in that all that is produced is also sold. And so if the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied are the exact same, which is what happens when those 2 curves intersect, that's clearing the market of all of that product. And then one last thing here that you should definitely get in your notes under equilibrium price is that price and quantity will move towards equilibrium. And so you'll see that it's not always perfect. We are constantly going through surpluses and shortages that are created because the price is not where it should be. But the price should always be moving towards equilibrium. And so here's an example of a downward sloping demand curve, an upward sloping supply curve, and that point where they intersect right here, this will be the equilibrium price. And it's kind of hard to tell exactly what the price would be, but if I were to draw a straight line across here, maybe $2.50, maybe $3. And so whatever that point is right there, that is the equilibrium price. And that is like the perfect price. It's what the price is always moving towards. The quantity, if I could draw a line down here, maybe that's 3.25, I don't know, but that's the equilibrium quantity. And notice the quantity would be same. Quantity demanded and quantity supplied are the same at this point right here. And so equilibrium price is where the curves intersect. Same thing, demand curve, supply curve, where they intersect, that is the equilibrium price. That is the market clearing price. And so whatever price this is over here, that's the equilibrium price.